In one study in Mind, 95% of those interviewed said their mood improved after spending time outside, changing from depressed, stressed, and anxious to more calm and balanced. Well, Mother Nature does take care of us. It gives us land to live on, air to breathe, and water to drink. Let's say without nature, human survival would be impossible. But that doesn't mean nature is always kind and caring. Sometimes it shows us its dark side and reminds us that we humans are nothing but small beings in the grand scheme of things. So let's take a look at 15 times when nature revealed its raw, unfiltered power, moments that left us in awe, terror, and disbelief. Number 15. The AD 1138 Aleppo earthquake. It started with a rumble, and then the world crumbled. On October 11, 1138, the Syrian city of Aleppo experienced one of the most catastrophic earthquakes in recorded history. Picture this: Aleppo, sitting smugly on the Arabian and African tectonic plates, thought it could handle a little tectonic drama. Turns out, it couldn't. This quake didn't just shake things up, it flattened the citadel, reduced homes to rubble, and sent the city's death toll soaring to a staggering and heavily debated 230,000. Now, before you whip out a calculator to figure out the death toll per minute, it's worth noting that historians think this number might be inflated, possibly lumping together disasters from other regions. Still, the destruction was undeniably pretty ginormous. Nature didn't just flex its muscles, it showed humanity how small and powerless we really are. Sometimes the ground beneath our feet reminds us, don't take me for granted. Number 14. Yangtze River flooding, August 1931. The Yangtze River is like that one relative who's usually calm, but can unleash absolute chaos when provoked. In the summer of 1931, nature decided to turn on the waterworks. Between July and August, torrential rains combined with melting snow transformed China's longest river into a 6,300-kilometer-long wrecking ball. Cities like Wuhan and Nanjing were underwater, and an area twice the size of Portugal became a giant, soggy mess. But it wasn't just water that plagued the survivors. It was the trifecta of misery: starvation, disease, and displacement. With malaria, measles, and cholera running rampant, it was less happily ever after and more happily never again. Estimates suggest millions were affected, and the death toll ranged from hundreds of thousands to millions. If rivers had personalities, the Yangtze would be the friend who's 90% dependable, but 10% terrifyingly unpredictable. And in 1931, it was all 10%. Number 13. Acid rain. Well, it sounds like something out of a dystopian sci-fi movie, but in reality, it's just nature's way of reminding us that actions have consequences. Specifically, when we pump sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides into the atmosphere like it's a hobby. Acid rain doesn't just ruin your hair day, it has the power to strip nutrients from the soil, poison lakes, and make stone statues look like they're auditioning for a weathered zombie movie. This environmental villain peaked in the 20th century, leaving forests looking skeletal and fish populations wondering what they did to deserve such a cruel fate. Thanks to some quick thinking and cleaner air policies in Europe and North America, acid rain's reign of terror has lessened in recent decades. But don't get too cozy. Nature loves a comeback story. Next time you admire a historic marble monument, just remember, it survived acid rain, so you could snap that selfie. All right, now, let's head over to number 12, Tangshan earthquake. At 3:42 a.m. on July 28, 1976, while most of Tangshan's 1 million residents were asleep, the Earth decided to give them a rude and catastrophic wake-up call. The magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck with a fury that flattened nearly every unreinforced masonry building in this coal mining and industrial hub, located just 110 kilometers east of Beijing. The initial shock devastated Tangshan, but the nightmare wasn't over. Later that day, an aftershock measuring 7.1 hits Luangxian, a nearby city, compounding the destruction. Roads, railways, dams, and wells were obliterated, leaving survivors struggling to rebuild in the wake of unimaginable loss. The earthquake's effects were felt over 1,100 kilometers away, making it one of the most widely impactful quakes in history. Tangshan became a chilling reminder of nature's raw power. A bustling industrial city reduced to ruins in seconds highlighted the fragility of human infrastructure when nature decides to shake things up in a more destructive manner. Number 11. Bola Cyclone, Bangladesh. In November 1970, nature unleashed its fury on East Pakistan, modern-day Bangladesh, through the Bola cyclone, a storm so ferocious it set grim records. With winds reaching 205 kilometers per hour, this cyclone is remembered as the deadliest tropical storm in history. The cyclone arrived during harvest season, swelling the population with seasonal workers, which made the disaster even more devastating. In many coastal areas, storm surges swept away entire villages, leaving behind nothing but heartbreak and destruction. Communication failures and lack of adequate warning systems meant people had little chance to evacuate to safety. The storm surge inundated vast stretches of farmland, ruining rice crops and leading to famine. In the end, the cyclone claimed an estimated 300,000 to 500,000 lives, with millions more left homeless. The Bola cyclone wasn't just a storm, it was a disaster that laid bare the vulnerabilities of impoverished communities facing nature's wrath. Number 10. Lake Nyos Limnic Eruption. Deep in the jungles of Cameroon, Lake Nyos held a deadly secret. On August 21, 1986, the seemingly peaceful lake suddenly turned into a weapon of mass suffocation. Beneath its surface, a magma chamber had been leaking carbon dioxide into the water for years, creating a deadly carbonic time bomb. Without warning, 1.6 million tons of CO2 erupted from the lake in a massive burst. The gas, heavier than air, spilled out like an invisible tsunami, rolling downhill at 60 kilometers per hour. Entire villages suffocated as the CO2 displaced oxygen, killing over 1,700 people and thousands of livestock. The eruption was so violent it created an 80-foot-high water tsunami that stripped trees and soil from the lake's edges. This bizarre and rare natural disaster serves as a reminder that even serene landscapes can harbor unimaginable danger, proving that nature doesn't always need earthquakes or storms to show its deadly and dark side. Number 9. Indian Ocean Earthquake and Tsunami. On December 26, 2004, the Earth shifted beneath the Indian Ocean, unleashing a magnitude 9.1 earthquake, one of the most powerful ever recorded. The quake wasn't content with just shaking the ground. It created a massive tsunami that raced across 12 countries at speeds of 800 kilometers per hour, with waves as tall as 30 meters. In Banda Aceh, Indonesia, the first waves struck just 15 minutes after the quake, catching residents off guard. Coastal communities from Thailand to Sri Lanka, India, and even East Africa were devastated in hours. The tsunami's energy was equivalent to 23,000 Hiroshima atomic bombs, even altering the Earth's rotation. Over 230,000 people lost their lives, and millions were displaced. This event remains one of the deadliest natural disasters in modern history, reminding us that the oceans, so often a source of life, can become agents of death and destruction in a moment's notice. Number 8. Typhoon Nina and Banqiao Dam Collapse. In August 1975, Typhoon Nina arrived in China with unprecedented rainfall, but the true disaster struck when the Banqiao Dam gave way. Built to withstand a 1,000-year flood, the dam was no match for the typhoon's relentless downpour, which delivered double the expected rainfall in just one day. On August 8th at 1 a.m., the dam collapsed, unleashing a wall of water 10 meters high and 11 kilometers wide. The flood swept across villages, roads, and farmlands, traveling at 50 km/h and leaving destruction in its wake. Over 60 other dams failed in the region, amplifying the devastation. The human toll was staggering, an estimated 230,000 deaths from flooding, starvation, and disease. The disaster highlighted the limits of human engineering against nature's overwhelming force. Typhoon Nina and the Banqiao Dam collapse serve as a stark reminder that when nature decides to break the rules, even our best defenses can crumble. Number 7. The 1815 Tambora eruption. In April 1815, Mount Tambora in Indonesia erupted with unmatched ferocity, earning a 7 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index. Over 5 days, it released ash and gases equivalent to 52,000 Hiroshima bombs, making it the most powerful eruption in recorded history. Sumbawa Island was decimated, with 92,000 lives lost due to starvation as crops failed in the ash-covered lands. The explosion was so massive it altered global weather patterns, creating the infamous year without a summer in 1816. Snow fell in June in Quebec, and frost destroyed crops across Europe and North America. The atmospheric ash caused dazzling sunsets, but also led to widespread famine and disease. Tambora's eruption was a stark example of how a single event can ripple across the globe, showing the interconnectedness and fragility of life on Earth. We don't have power like Whitebeard or Superman, so never say you are powerful. Remember, Mama Nature always finds a way to remind us of our place in the grand scheme of things. No matter how advanced we become, we are still at the mercy of the planet we call a rented home. Number 6. The Great Kanto Earthquake. At 11:58 a.m. on September 1, 1923, Japan's Kanto region was rocked by a devastating earthquake that measured 7.9 on the Richter scale. The tremor struck at the worst possible time, when families were preparing lunch. Overturned stoves triggered raging fires that swept through Tokyo and Yokohama, fueled by strong winds. By the time the chaos ended, fires had engulfed 130 locations, turning cities into infernos. A tsunami with 12-meter waves crashed into coastal areas, claiming dozens of lives and destroying homes in Atami. The earthquake and subsequent disasters toppled 10% of reinforced concrete buildings and over half of the brick structures in the region. The final death toll exceeded 140,000, with many casualties caused by the fires. This event exposed the vulnerabilities of urban infrastructure and marked one of the darkest days in Japan's history. Number 5. The 2003 European heat wave. Europe, known for its mild summers, faced an unprecedented challenge in 2003. A heat wave swept across the continent, bringing temperatures that broke records dating back to the 1700s. Switzerland recorded 106.7 degrees, Germany hit 104.7 degrees, and even Scotland reached an unheard-of 91.2 degrees. The heat was deadly. France alone reported over 14,800 deaths, many of them elderly individuals in homes unequipped for such extreme weather. In Portugal, wildfires raged, claiming lives and scorching vast forests, while crops failed across Ukraine, with 75% of wheat parched to death. Without widespread air conditioning, residents struggled to escape the heat, and infrastructure buckled under the strain. Glaciers in the Alps melted rapidly, triggering flash floods. The heat wave wasn't just an anomaly, it was a wake-up call for Europe, highlighting the growing threat of climate change. According to climate science, future heat waves are projected to become more frequent, intense, and longer in duration. So, be prepared for the pretty worse. Number 4. The Great Flood of 1931. Just like its name, the 1931 floods in China remain the deadliest natural disaster ever recorded. A deadly combination of heavy snowmelt, spring rains, and an unprecedented cyclone season overwhelmed the Yangtze, Yellow, and Huai rivers. These swollen rivers turned central China into an enormous floodplain. Entire villages were submerged, and Nanjing, the capital at the time, became an isolated island surrounded by water. The floodwaters covered over 100,000 square kilometers, more than the area of Portugal. Between 3.7 and 4 million people lost their lives, either drowning or succumbing to starvation and disease. The disaster devastated farmland, destroying food supplies and leaving survivors to face famine. It revealed the fragility of densely populated regions when nature's forces align catastrophically. The Great Flood was a nature way of saying, "Humans, you may think you have conquered the rivers, but I will always rule over them." Number 3. The 1556 Shanxi earthquake. Well, we've talked about a lot of earthquakes, but the 1556 Shanxi earthquake takes the grim title of the deadliest in history. Striking on January 23, 1556, in China's Shanxi province, this catastrophic event flattened an area of 1,000 square kilometers. Known as the Jiajing Great Earthquake, after the reigning emperor, it claimed an estimated 830,000 lives. Many victims lived in Yaodong, cave dwellings carved into low-S plateaus, which tragically collapsed under the tremors. Though its exact magnitude is unknown, geophysicists estimate it at around 8. The quake's devastation was unparalleled, highlighting the dark side of survival against nature's might. Number 2. The 1999 Bridge Creek F5 tornado. On May 3, 1999, at 7:12 p.m., an F5 tornado tore through Bridge Creek in Moore, Oklahoma, with winds reaching 318 mph, the fastest ever recorded on Earth. The tornado obliterated 8,000 homes and left behind a trail of unimaginable destruction. Vehicles were flung through the air like toys, with debris piercing everything in its path. Telephone poles were wrapped in metal, 2x4s impaled cars, and even pine straw pierced thick tree trunks. The sheer power of the storm prompted meteorologists to warn that anyone not underground would not survive. Miraculously, only 36 lives were lost, thanks to the region's preparedness and quick action. However, the tornado caused over $1 billion in damage, making it one of the costliest in history. While F3 or F4 tornadoes are also very destructive, this F5 tornado, if ever repeated, will cause even more devastation that maybe no one can put a price on. Alright guys, now, let's talk about the latest destruction. Number 1. California wildfires, 2025. Now, nature is not just a book from history, it's writing its own apocalyptic chapters in real time. The 2025 California wildfires have become a harrowing testament to how relentless and unforgiving nature can be. Among these blazes, the Hughes Fire stands out. In less than 24 hours, this inferno scorched over 10,000 acres just north of Los Angeles, propelled by fierce Santa Ana winds and fueled by parched vegetation left brittle from years of climate-induced extremes. Tens of thousands were evacuated as flames devoured homes, schools, and entire neighborhoods, leaving trails of ash where lives once thrived. With 28 lives lost and over 17,000 structures reduced to rubble, the Hughes Fire epitomized the growing unpredictability of California's fire seasons, if we can even call them seasons anymore. Scientists pointed to climate change as the underlying culprit, creating a volatile cocktail of heavy rains followed by intense droughts. May God protect us all. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.